Hello everyone, my name's Tomato Anus, also known as Richard Skinny, and today we're going over a segmented scriptless speedrun of Half-Life and how a top runner for the game, Kananga, beats it in just 26 minutes. Kana put together this run specifically for this video, and he also helped with writing the script to make sure it's all as accurate as possible. Half-Life came out on November 19th, 1998. Happy birthday, you can now rent a car without extra fees, and in it you play as science dude Morgan Freeman. After an experiment on a crystal of alien origin goes wrong, a portal is opened to a dimension named Zen, and now there's critters everywhere. The game normally takes place over the span of 18 chapters, but the first one is just a 6-minute long tram ride, so speedruns of the game start in the second chapter, Anomalous Materials. Couple things to run through real quick. At the bottom of the screen there are two numbers. The bottom one is Kana's current horizontal speed, while the top one is what his speed was when he last jumped. The normal walking speed is 320 units, but you can walk at speeds of over 490 if you strafe, which is holding both forward and either left or right while turning your mouse left or right. Strafing on the ground is most commonly used to start a bunny hopping chain. When you strafe in this context, it's typically referred to as pre-strafing. Bunny hopping is the main movement method in the run. Kana will repeatedly jump as soon as he touches the ground so that he doesn't deal with the floor trying to slow him down to a normal movement speed. Humans ain't perfect though. It's impossible to consistently jump on the exact frame you touch the ground, so there's almost always going to be a tiny bit of speed loss from ground friction. There's a speedrun category called scripted where runners are allowed to use scripts to automatically do things like perfectly bunny hop, but this video is covering a scriptless speedrun where only human inputs are allowed. So while Kana bunny hops, he's also going to air strafe, where he holds either left or right while turning the direction he's holding. So if he air strafes left, he's holding left while in air while turning his camera to the left. Air strafing builds your speed, and when you couple it with bunny hopping, you can go a little fast. There's a couple other small things to mention, but we'll get into those right after this. Previously on Tomato Anus.
This jacket must be a time machine.
Can I move in with you guys? I think I want to move out.
Hey Chicago guy, now that Gavin's moved out, maybe we should ask Rocky Mountain guy to move back in. And what's going on here?
I accidentally made a lot of me by time traveling. Huh, so we end up getting a roommate at some point. Hey, you can't talk. You're not allowed to talk.
What are they all holding?
Oh, those are disc plates.
Oh, no way. I've seen Pastoni Tony Marinara talk about those, don't you know?
Yeah, they're super neat. They have a bunch of official brands they work with, like Warhammer, Mortal Kombat, Sega, and more.
Aren't they also manufactured in the EU and arrive within 4 to 5 days?
Yep. Not to get political, but they're also super easy to mount on your wall.
Chicago guy, I don't see how that was political.
I said what I said. I think what they're trying to say is that it takes 20 seconds to hang a disc plate. No tools required. Just put the magnet on the wall and you're golden. It's so easy, someone from Wisconsin could do it.
Whoa, that was weird.
Yeah, let's wrap this up so I can prestige them.
Wait, did you just say you're going to prestige them? That's so unethical.
You can get an insane Black Friday deal using the link in the description, displate.com/tomatoanus, for up to 44% off, available now until November 29th, 2023. Again, that's displate.com/tomatoanus.
So about this roommate situation.
Oh my god, I just had an incredible idea. I'll be right back. Minnesota guy, meet your dad. Minnesota dad. He's our new roommate.
I got a lot of questions.
You betcha. Uh-oh.
The first of the last things to cover before starting the run is that this run is done on the World Opponent Network version of the game, 1 for short. This is the version from before Steam existed as a platform, and it's used because the Steam version has a movement speed cap of 544 units per second, while the 1 version has a speed cap in the 2000s. Next, this run is done on the easy difficulty since enemies deal a little less damage, and you also get more health and armor from things like batteries, medkits, and chargers. The run used to be done on hard because there's a skip that was believed to only be possible on hard, but a way was found to do it on easy as well, and now easy runs are simply the fastest way to beat the game. And lastly, there's a thing he's going to do right at the start of the run called wall strafing. This is where you walk alongside a wall while holding both forward and the direction into the wall. So if the wall is on your left, you hold forward and left. It essentially serves the same purpose as pre-strafing, with pre-strafing being what's used more. It's just that the run starts in a super tight space, so he's going to wall strafe to be as close to the wall so he has as much space as possible to do a 180. So to start the run, he wall strafes while waiting 8 seconds for the door in the starting airlock to open, and he'll then air strafe left and right and bunny hop all through these hallways en route to the HEV suit. He'll grab the suit by bumping into a corner of the glass where the suit's hitbox clips through, and he'll then do a drive-by on Morgan Freeman's locker to grab a suit battery. Speedrunners have meticulously routed what their health and armor need to be throughout the run because losing health gives you speed in this game, so they intentionally take damage at many points. So the game calculates where you're going at the start of every frame, so Kana lowers his FPS to 4 whenever he approaches a door, so he touches and opens it a quarter second early. He changes his FPS to 8 here so Barney Cocoon turns faster, since 8 FPS is the perfect value for NPC movement and they turn immediately. When he rounds the corner ahead, he'll skip an elevator ride by dropping down the shaft like Little Cricket and grabs a ladder at the last moment to delete his fall speed. Ahead, he'll 4 FPS again and maintain his speed through a door opening, and he'll then touch the loading trigger for the next map and back up into the previous map before then moving forward again. NPCs get stuck for a couple seconds when you enter a map for the first time, and you can unfreeze them by going back and forth like this, and he pushes this NPC up to the door to make it realize it wants to go through the door, and the door opens right away, skipping a panel interaction and a half-minute dialogue. Kana is making his way down to the infamous test chamber, and after riding the elevator down here, he's going to be in the room before said test chamber with 2 NPCs. The NPCs talk for a little, so he's going to spend that time pushing them as close as possible to their respective retina scanners. Kana has a bit of time to do this, so he tries to push them as perfectly as possible, using visual cues on the ground for how to line himself up. Just like me, the NPCs don't like having their butts touched while they're talking, so he only pushes them while the other one is talking. Once they're in position, he lowers his FPS to 8 so they turn immediately, then lowers it to 4 as he enters the test chamber, and once the door shuts behind him, a long cutscene starts, which is the only long cutscene that he can't fully skip. Inside the chamber, he'll climb up high to a spot where he'll push a button as soon as its lid opens, and he'll then have to wait for the cutscene to play out, but he'll kill some time by showing off an invisible block he can jump on. When the experiment goes wrong, there'll be an explosion, and this invisible block is an explosive block that'll blow up, but Kana will be gone by then, so we won't get to see it explode. He's then going to spend the rest of the cutscene practicing his bunny hops for fun and aiming to get a speed of over 1,000 units per second. Leave a comment for whether or not you'll think he'll succeed, and then once you know the result, ridicule those who got it wrong. Like, really make fun of them. Anyway, while Kana kills time, I'd just like to say, as always, that I hope you're all doing well. If not, then as always, I'd just like to remind you that no feeling is final. No matter what's going on or what's weighing you down, there is a tomorrow, and it cannot take that away from you. You are not defined by what's going on or clouding your mind, and one day you'll be able to look back and see it as strictly where you were rather than who you were, because you are not and never will be defined by those feelings. It's important to reflect on how far you've come, so please remember to do that now and then, and also remember to give yourself credit for any mental health gains. You're the one getting you through tough times, not the media you use to distract you, like movies or music or videos on YouTube explaining speedruns or books. You're the one doing the work, and you're the one who deserves the credit. Back to the run, every map in the game has 2 triggers, one to get to the previous map and one for the next map. The trigger here to go to the next map is at the top of this chamber since they didn't want you to reach it on your own, so what Kana is going to do is what's called an object boost. There's a cage where a cart he's supposed to push is going to come up into. He'll line himself up with a front corner of the cage while looking at a specific pixel in the texture to set himself with a specific view angle. He then holds a hotkey to lock his view angle and moves to another specific spot while the cart comes up. He'll then move the cart to a specific spot, line himself up using some textures on the cart, grab it, and move right, which gives him an insane speed boost for a frame, during which he lets go so he'll fly up into the next map trigger and land on a small invisible ledge. He'll save and load to skip a fade in from black, and then he'll do a jump bug to another invisible ledge, where he'll set his FPS to 23, fall and crouch, then jump and uncrouch at the same time the frame he lands. The game registers this as him starting a frame falling midair and ending the same frame rising from the jump, so it's like he never touched the ground and doesn't take fall damage. He crouches to enter this room and skips several minutes of gameplay and begins the movement heavy level by bunny hopping down the hall to grab the crowbar off the ground, doing the 4 FPS trick in the process to grab it a quarter second earlier. Worth mentioning, while he parkours through these hallways, while he has scroll wheel down bound to jump, he has scroll wheel up bound to crouch. This of course makes it easier to quickly crouch for small gaps, but also if you spam crouch twice in a row, you get a tiny bit of height and you're in the air for around 1/3 of your normal jump distance. This This is called a duck tap and is used when he needs to cross a tiny distance and doesn't want to do a full jump. After some spicy crouches here to squeeze through small gaps, Kana will grab the Glock off the ground and he'll then drop down into some sewers where he has to raise the water level so he can go through a hatch that he has to open above. When he exits the sewers, he'll use a barrel in a corner to save less than a second with a small object boost into an elevator slope, where he'll hold back to bounce off the slope and then convert the falling speed into horizontal speed at the bottom. He then breaks 3 boxes for armor batteries and does an object boost with a box to skip a large gap and collect the final battery while boosting. Kana opens and closes the doors to this elevator to activate the level change trigger, with the trigger slightly clipping through the elevator's doors. So by staying outside the elevator doors and hitting the trigger there, the next map instantly loads in and he's in it, and he doesn't have to wait for the 11-second elevator ride before proceeding. He picks up a medkit and a battery here so that he then has enough health and armor to tank some damage here and not have to stop bunny hopping. This is called electricity skip, which is what he's been preparing for since he picked up the battery from Morgan's locker at the start, since otherwise he'd have to turn off the electricity first, which takes 7 seconds. Kana busts into a vent here and uses the Glock to kill 3 head crabs. I bet Zeb is real jealous. Then destroys the last head crab, duck taps under a deadly fan blade, and booty bounces his way to exit the vent. After dropping down, he jumps off some head crabs that bust through the asbestos to be able to reach a ladder up above, and after breaking a couple vents to enter a room, he object boosts with a box. He refills his metal dispenser while running up these stairs, then bunny hops straight ahead where he'll access a secret area that has a shotgun in it. He does the 4 FPS trick to grab the shotgun early, and the timing works perfectly where he can shoot the nearby window to jump out without slowing down. After killing the 2 Vortigaunts in this hall, he'll shoot Barney once to aggro him, then grab some grenades downstairs before beginning to lure Barney to a door. He times out throwing the nades near Barney to manipulate him into running Kana's direction towards a door he wants Barney to open, and blocks him for an instant just before the door, which makes the door open the instant he touches it. This manip is a huge run killer since it saves over a minute, but if you save load at all on the map, Barney suddenly can't open the door anymore, so safety saves are out of the question. He hops across the gap here to skip the trigger that would cause Paul Giamatti to fall, which dooms Paul to an eternity of sore arms. Kana drops into the elevator to enter the next map, where he instantly dickshots a scientist to stop him in his tracks, and then he blocks the scientist's path, which forces him to run to a nearby door. Behind this door the scientist opens is a button that you press to open this big door that blocks off the end of the level. The issue though is that the door the scientist opens shuts behind you and locks you in the room if you don't hit a trigger in the room while the door is opening. You're supposed to enter this room from the other side, and the trigger in question is supposed to open this door for you, but since Kana treats the scientist like a redheaded stepchild, the trigger does the exact opposite if he's not fast enough. So what Kana needs to do is cook a grenade and throw it at the door so that the scientist goes boom and doesn't block his path, so that he can enter the door while it's opening and he doesn't get locked in. He tops off on health in the brief moments where he has to wait here, and then Maze Runner's under the big door he just started opening, ending the second shortest chapter of the run in just over 10 seconds. He does an object boost to start this chapter and begins cooking a grenade before jumping out the window when he hears the blast doors open, and precisely moves into a tiny ladder here to avoid fall damage. Kana goes 4 FPS, nade boosts, and bunny hops down this stretch instead of taking a cart, since bunny hopping is faster. He shoots the boxes in the toxic sludge ahead so he can grab the medkits from them before he then jumps on some other boxes, then to a lip on a pipe where he then parkours into a neighboring pipe that he follows to the end. He'll grab 2 medkits and batteries on the way to an elevator he'll ride, and you'll notice he constantly jumps while riding the elevator up. This is because sometimes you can get stuck in the lift and take a shit ton of damage, but jumping avoids that. When he reaches the main chamber of the room at the top, he's going to show off that the wall in the room is glitched, where by shooting a hound eye and causing it to jump back into the wall, it decides its people need it and that it must go. He'll reload to do the room proper, where he'll build up speed and jump off a railing to a far walkway, skipping going through the cylinder room in the center that contains a tentacle boss. He does an edge bug to avoid fall damage, where similar to the jump bug earlier, he touches the very edge of a floor in the middle of a frame where he starts and ends the frame midair, so his vertical velocity is reset despite never being on the ground during the frame. He throws some nades to kill these hound eyes so they don't get in the way when he comes back through here later, and he lands on the 45-degree slope of a pipe here to convert vertical velocity to horizontal and avoid fall damage. When he gets on the moving platform, he gifts the zombie a nade so it's not in the way later, and up here, he presses 2 buttons to activate the electricity, doing a duck tap while jumping off the platform and pressing the second button, and doing an edge bug back into the hallway from whence he came. Kana then climbs up a huge ladder, stopping near the top to get his health to around 90 by using a health charger through the wall, since Morgan's arms go through walls. At the top, he'll grab a metal box and do an object boost, then bunny hop with the speed and perfectly land on a barrel that he'll shoot to give enough height and skip the tentacle room again. After bunny hopping down this hall, Kana blasts open a hole with the shotgun and drops down, using the water to cancel the fall damage en route to activating the fuel and oxygen in this chapter. He demonstrates what I wish Balance Beam was like in the Olympics, and once he enters the giant fan room, he drops down and touches a ladder to cancel the fall, activates the fan, and Willy Wonka's up where he breaks into a vent. After busting his way through the vent like he's playing Fat Kid in Halo 3, he heads to 2 buttons labeled Fuel and Oxygen. Once he activates them, all 3 of Fuel, Oxygen, and Electricity are active, meaning he can head to the Tentacle Room and kill the Tentacle to progress the chapter. He's going to be entering the Tentacle Room from the backside, something hentai, since he skipped past the room, meaning that he won't enter at the control room where the switch is located that uses the Fuel, Oxygen, and Electricity to launch a big fire and kill the Tentacle. Thankfully, like I just covered, Morgan's arms go through walls, so you can press the button through the glass, which activates the tentacle kill cutscene. During the cutscene, he cancels fall damage by getting stuck between a wall and a steel beam, busts some boards for in a moment, then shows off a zombie dragging a guard and a scientist that's supposed to be part of a cutscene. Kana demonstrates that you can actually break the zombie cutscene by killing the zombie, and then uses the scientist to heal him a bit. As the tentacle cutscene wraps up, he heads through the hole he broke in the boards and goes to the tentacle hole. As soon as the black floor disappears from the hole, he drops through and uses the slopes in the tunnels to avoid fall damage and drops down into some water. After surfacing and jumping down to a platform in the toxic sludge area, he wiggles between the health and armor chargers to use both at the same time and get at least 30 armor. So in the toxic sludge are some floating barrels, with some of them floating down the river. These barrels move through the river due to a trigger in the water that pushes things. Kana is going to abuse these triggers with a movement tech called sharking. Sharking is where he holds jump to stay on top of the water, which in general helps maintain velocity when you're moving through water. While on top of this pushing trigger, he'll then spam crouch inputs by scrolling up, because again, he has scroll wheel up bound to crouch. This causes him to repeatedly hit the push trigger and gain a ton of speed. By then holding jump to shark, you can slide on top of the water and basically surf. He'll use this to quickly move down the stream where he'll drop down a waterfall. At the bottom of the waterfall, he'll stand and look in a specific spot to line himself up, then hit another push trigger and use it to gain a bunch of speed to dolphin dive into a pipe up above. Kana will navigate through the pipe, and at the end of it, he'll lower his FPS to 20 so he takes less fall damage as he lands on some medkits and starts cooking a nade. He's going to throw this nade and make it slide over the floor and under a box by using 20 FPS. As soon as an explosive goes under a wall or a box in this game, it becomes a nuke. It deals the same amount of damage to everything in the blast radius, as opposed to dealing less damage the farther out in the blast radius you are. He'll do it here to explode all the nearby boxes to drop a handful of items, but he'll leave the room by object boosting before the explosion even happens. So why explode everything then? Well, down the hallway, he's going to be entering the next chapter's map, Power Up, which is the shortest chapter in the speedrun. He's immediately going to skip the entire chapter by heading over to these concrete barriers and mantling up them by timing out movement and jumps on these sloped surfaces they have on bottom. You're supposed to ride a train at the end of the level and use it to burst through the barriers, but climbing over them skips that. Once he climbs the barrier and skips the chapter, straight ahead in the new map is the location of the same coordinates as where he nuked the boxes for the items, so all the items are just laying there for him to grab. Like, if you overlay the 2 maps on each other, you can see that the location where he nuked the boxes and the corner of this new hallway are in the same spot. The items, by the way, are 2 trip mines and 2 med kits, all of which he's going to grab. Trip mines can be placed anywhere and you can stand on them, kind of like paintbrushes in Oblivion, so they're pretty nifty to have. Alright, let's see Kana shark a couple times, commit a war crime by dropping a nuke, and then skip an entire chapter in 9 seconds. Kana's now entering on a rail, which is a map where you're intended to keep riding the train you use to break the barriers. Instead, he hoofs it by bunny hopping, which is faster than the train anyways. Here he takes damage with every jump due to being in electrified water, so he has to be fast to minimize damage. He then builds a staircase with the trip mines he grabbed to be able to climb up to a different part of the train tracks. After climbing up 2 ladders, he'll use a box for the only forward object boost of the run, where he moves towards the box while using it to gain speed, but this means he has to time out a shot on the box to break it so that it doesn't stop his movement once he gains the speed. Kana wants his health to be high and armor to be low for this part because he begins to cook a nade here that he'll throw through a blast door up ahead to scare a guard into not shooting him, then cook another nade that he'll use to boost himself after the doors open after killing this dude with the shotgun. The boost sends him at over 1,000 units of speed, which he wants to keep as high as possible, and he makes quick saves between jumps so that if he messes up at all like he does here while passing trip mines, he can just reload to try again while maintaining speed. Bunny hopping down this makeshift racetrack is incredibly satisfying to do well, but because you're supposed to be on a train here, not much effort went into the collision on the ground, so there's lots of janky collision boxes and spots where you can easily get stuck that you have to avoid. When he enters the elevator here, he blows up some explosive boxes the instant they become visible so he doesn't take any damage, and grabs an SMG from a kablammed soldier. SMGs have SMG grenades, which are great for boosting and more. When he rounds a corner ahead, he's going to go up a ramp and do some stand-up bunny hops where he crouches as soon as he jumps and uncrouches as soon as he's about to hit the ground, which lets him bunny hop uphill. He'll then look at a vertical line on the wall ahead for a visual cue while wall strafing, which is a lineup for an edge bug at the bottom of this drop. Kana b-hops precisely here to avoid this turret while distracting a soldier with an SMG nade and blows up a couple soldiers outside with another nade. He then enters a map where you're supposed to launch a rocket and be stuck inside watching it launch, but instead he climbs up here and interacts with the button through the glass. He'll go inside while the rocket is launching and clean up some enemies, then while waiting for the rocket cutscene to play out, shows off a glitch where switching from an empty pistol to grenades gives the nade throwing animation when shooting the pistol. He tops off on his health through a wall, and the instant that the screen flashes white, he begins throwing casings as he fires the pistol and dumps 2 mags to time out when the rocket cutscene will end. As soon as the cutscene ends, he can interact with a panel to leave the area, but if he leaves too early, then he'll be blocked in the next area by some big gates. After he dumps his second mag, he reloads, and as soon as the reload ends, the cutscene will have finished and he interacts with the panel to continue. He then does a trick referred to as tank box, which is the last form of fall damage cancel we'll cover this run, where he shoots a box to break it the instant he lands, which, similar to jump and edge bug, doesn't give the game enough time to process he landed and should take fall damage. He hops on this cart and moves to the front left corner where he climbs slightly on top of the cart so he can jump off it when it goes flying into the next room, and he can begin moving down through the level slightly sooner. Kana jumps down into the water and shoots a barrel so he can take a more direct line, and pretty much just holds forward to try and take the shortest lines. His HP goes down while in the water, but it goes back up as soon as he exits, since Morgan Freeman can then breathe again. And so can I. Jesus Christ. He's then going to do what's called shark jump here by bunny hopping off this fish fucker's head while it eats a scientist, then heads up some stairs and drops down, where he'll do another b-hop chain that includes landing on a hole in a fence as he human Tetrises through. He'll lower his FPS so he pushes a box only a few feet instead of it sliding to the far wall, then object boosts to fly past the G-Man and say good game as he passes by and slaps him on the ass. Kana goes back and forth through the level changes so NPCs move immediately and fires a nade to startle a Vortigaunt into running and opening a door, and Kana crouches so the Vortigaunt won't see him and stop running. He moves again when he hears the door open, then opens a door to a freezer he breezes through so that he doesn't get hit by enemies, and his armor only lowers a little bit from the cold. He object boosts on this barrel and breaks boxes for medkits so he tops off his health, wanting to have 100 HP and no less than 12 armor. After object boosting past these Vortigaunts, he rides an elevator up, and at the top he'll begin a stretch that includes the newest trick in this speedrun. First he'll get a battery out of a box and then try to keep his health as high as possible, ideally above 60 after he does a nade boost to reach an upper level. If he goes below 60, it's not optimal, but it's still doable, so keep a lookout for what his health is at after he boosts so you can know just how tight you should be clenching your butthole. Up on this level are assassins that try and shoot you, and he needs to activate a lever located here, so he'll stand behind the wall and give the wall a reach around to activate the lever so the assassins can't shoot him. He has to hold the lever for a moment to raise a gate, and once the gate is raised high enough, he'll let go of the lever and start heading towards the gate, and along the way he'll fire an SMG nade to break some boxes that drop regular grenades. Kana won't pick those up right away though. Instead, he'll Indiana Jones under the gate and head towards a room with a conveniently placed health health charger. Almost too convenient. That's because this room is a trap, and when you enter it, you hit a trigger that starts a cutscene of some guards capturing Morgan Freeman, and at the start of the cutscene, you have all your weapons taken away. That trigger activates on the first frame you're in the room, and on the very next frame, you hit another trigger that teleports you to a dark room. This is so that it appears like you were knocked out by the guards, but in reality, you're just in a sensory deprivation tank for a moment. This leads to a sequence where you're in garbage compactor 3263-827, and the walls are closing in on you, and you gotta escape. So, here's what Kana is going to do. When he approaches the ambush room, he's going to lower his FPS to 4. He'll barely walk into the room to hit the cutscene activation trigger, and during the quarter-second long frame, he'll back out of the room so that he doesn't hit the relocation trigger that's active on the very next frame. Doing this requires a lot of precision, and it isn't uncommon for this to take a couple of attempts. The cutscene trigger takes away all his weapons, so while the cutscene plays out, he'll head back to the previous room where he shot the SMG nade to blow up the boxes, and pick up the regular grenades that the boxes drop. He'll then head back to the trap room to hit the second trigger to be relocated, and you can actually use the health charger there for a moment to try and get your HP back up to 100. So he'll then be captured and relocated, but he'll have the nades that he just picked up as opposed to having no weapons at all. He's then going to save load so he can see the garbage compactor room early, and this is where there's some tight movement required. His goal is to get on top of one of the compactor walls over here, but at the start, there's an invisible wall blocking it. The invisible wall only goes away after the box below him breaks, which happens a couple seconds after the level transition. So his goal is going to be to hop to this box in the middle of the room, then onto the wall of the compactor. But there's a small issue. Like I just said a moment ago, the box that he starts on breaks at the same time that the invisible wall disappears. He needs to have a certain amount of momentum to make it onto the compactor wall. So that means he needs to carefully time his movement and jumps so that he begins moving and building speed before the box below him breaks, but that he reaches the compactor wall after the invisible wall disappears. It's kinda a small window of time. To time out when he needs to jump off this box and build speed to make it to the compactor, he's going to do a duck tap and then 2 regular jumps. As soon as he finishes the regular jumps, he'll begin moving as the box below him is destroyed, and he should be able to make it on top of the compactor wall then. Because he jumps from the first box and doesn't fall to the ground, that means that he doesn't hit a trigger that would usually make the wall start closing in. So that means that he has to manually initiate the wall to move. The compactor wall has the same controls as trains in this game, so that means that he just has to press interact on it, and he can press forward 4 times to speed it up. The exit to this room is under a big box that the wall needs to break, so by pressing forward on the wall 4 times, he speeds it up and causes this to happen sooner. There is a crowbar in this room though, up on this ledge that he wants to grab as well, so once he speeds up the wall, he'll do a precise jump off of a box to reach and grab the crowbar. Once he has it, he'll drop down to the exit box as it breaks, and then drop down into the next map. Looking at the sum of its parts, this stretch has Kana leaving a chapter where he's supposed to lose all of his weapons, but instead he'll have grenades and a lot of health, which will be super useful for a trick he's going to be doing pretty soon. Whew, that was a lot. I need to go take a nap.
Taking this Freeman guy. Topside for questioning. What the hell for? We got him. Let's kill him now. And if they find the body? Body? What body?
The exit pipe has a push trigger, so Kana moves into the wall to take advantage of it and have speed coming out. Here he NoHo Hanks this silo by opening the valve on bottom, draining the substance from it that he rides down after climbing up. The next trick he's going to do is called Meat Grab, where after crouch B-hopping through this pipe, he'll jump on some meat chunks that are floating in sludge, grab a tiny one and drag it towards him, and use it to object boost while crouched to go flying through this pipe, saving around 7 seconds from all the speed he gets. Coming up, he'll do the trick that he got the grenades for earlier that he wants at least 92 health for. It was long believed that you can't clip through walls in this game, but it was discovered more recently that you can clip through walls in water if you get enough speed so that you move to the other side of the wall within the next frame. He cooks a nade here and swings his crowbar 3 times to time this out, and will set his FPS to the precise value of 20.12 and drop the nade as he falls here, perfectly timing and spacing it out so that the explosion gives him enough speed to clip down through the ground and the water into a different room, while also not being so close to the explosion he dies from the damage. This saves 12 seconds, and he comes up in this room here and grabs a revolver, which is powerful but has scarce ammo, and uses the first of the scarce ammo to break a table so he can grab some remote explosives easier. He does Nazbelt here by activating a conveyor belt control and jumping off it to get over this fence and skip parts of the room, then follows the conveyor belt, carefully timing his movement to not get stuck on or smushed by any pistons. After sloping off the machinery here, he'll follow the belt to another room where he'll follow the passageway of a different belt that has trip mines on it, but he goes into 4 FPS so he moves past the laser within 1 frame and the game never realizes he went through the laser. He drops through the floor's mouth here and climbs up a ladder where he'll go through a vent to end the chapter. He'll then jump off a hound eye into crate to get over a fence and shoot another valuable bullet at some glass to start a cutscene so a door opens earlier. After bunny hopping through the lab hallways, he'll arrive at 2 soldiers, and he has very little HP so he doesn't want to get hit. He save loads between them to reset their AIs and stop them from walking, and uses 4 FPS to go through 2 sets of doors. Kana passes a couple more enemies locked in place from the save load, and around this corner he blows up a trip mine across the room. He grabs 3 trip mines and some armor batteries while waiting for the room to exit lockdown and lines up with a spot on the door to perfectly greet a guard on the other side. Kana save loads to ammo dupe and grab the guard's ammo twice to get 4 SMG nades, uses one to kill a soldier on the left, then presses a button through the wall and a button inside to stop some rotating blades. He talks to a scientist who will begin following him to heal him, and since he has under 50 HP, the scientist is bloodlusted for healing and ignores his fear of enemies. He moves through the level fast, but not too fast. That way when he goes up here and into a different map, the scientist is at the bottom of the ramp and doesn't follow him up. Here he triggers a cutscene between a Barney and a scientist, then clears out a few enemies, picks up a shotgun, ammo dupes to get 10 SMG grenades, and grabs 40 Gauss ammo before healing as much as possible. The main reason he's up here is for speedrunner's favorite toy, the Gauss rifle, so after jumping back to the room where Barney was and grabbing the Gauss rifle, he goes back down to the scientist he lured and talks to him so he follows again. He's leading this scientist across the level because the scientist can open the door at the end up here. Kana jumps repeatedly so the scientist can see him up the ramp and doesn't stop moving, and Kana then lures him to the scanner to open the door. He fills up to around 80 armor while waiting, then will head through the revolving door towards the end of the chapter and shoot some explosives with the revolver to clear a path and switch to the Gauss rifle. Through this door, he starts charging the Gauss and will do a Gauss boost from the dam up here to fly all the way down the gulch to a pipe that he uses the slope of to negate fall damage. He does a small Gauss boost while in this pipe, breaks some boxes outside for ammo, and damage boosts with the remote explosive while climbing. He tries to be fast as he hops and boosts through the terrain here to avoid the helicopter chasing him, and grabs some medkits and SMG nades here while turning a valve through a wall here to open a hatch. Kana Gauss boosts and B-hops through some more rocks to the hatch he just opened, where he drops down and wall strafes through the pipes, catching a ladder at the bottom to avoid fall damage. You can't charge the Gauss between map loads, so as soon as the new map loads here, he starts charging for a trick called pipe to pipe. Outside, he shoots the Gauss at a specific spot that reflects the shot back at him, so he gets both the horizontal speed from the Gauss boost, but also a vertical boost from taking damage from the shot. He holds the use button to stop immediately when he lands and jumps over a head crab exiting the pipe, then boosts through and will start charging the Gauss again when he exits the pipe ahead. There he'll line himself up with the slope on some sandbags and Gauss boost off it to ramp himself above the map to skip a gate that opens after a fight. He changed this speed past a tank to some doors ahead, and through the second door he's going to do the same thing where he charges a Gauss boost and ramps himself off a sloped surface to launch himself onto a building where he drops through a hole in the the roof, skipping a sniper and some landmines. He breaks the box he lands on for a medkit and enters an area runners call Trip Mine Hell, where he Gauss boosts B-hops and 4 FPS's past mines. At the bottom of this lift, he'll use 1 Gauss ammo to weaken an explosive box, then shoot both the explosive box and a regular box next to it with 1 shot, which breaks the regular box twice, once from the explosion and once from the shot, causing it to drop the Gauss ammo it's containing twice, so he gets 40 instead of 20, along with grabbing the Hornet gun. After grabbing 4 medkits and 6 revolver ammo from other boxes, he charges the Gauss and save loads, which automatically releases the shot and causes him to boost forward. He B-hops past some enemies and up a ramp to outside, where he does an enormous nade boost, lowering him to 2 HP. He lowers his FPS to avoid fall damage and uses a turret to blow up the next path while he charges the Gauss. He boosts past the big enemies and uses the launch pad ahead to jump up while charging the Gauss, then wedges himself in a part of the floor that's sloped to launch himself up, Gauss boosting a second time while in air while sharking on some out of bounds water. He fires a nade to scare a soldier into running, then fires his gun and ducks out of sight to lure the soldier near him at 20 FPS so the soldier fully turns, and throws a nade behind him to get him to open the door. Kana walks into the soldier and door at the same time to get stuck, and normally you take 1 damage per frame when stuck in a door, but this door actually heals you. He uses it to heal 100 HP per second and lets it fill up and overflow 7 times, so he has an insane amount of health and can damage boost freely and not worry about fall damage the rest of the run. This is called an infinite health door. He resumes by cooking a nade he'll use to boost through a tunnel, and once back outside, he'll bounce off a launch pad, cook another nade, and charge the Gauss rifle. He'll land the launch on a bay door where he'll aim in a precise spot with the Gauss so that the damage will reflect multiple times to fully destroy the door instead of waiting 6 seconds for an airstrike to destroy it. Kana nade boosts and B-hops before obeying a stop sign, then shoots out a window in the room up here and uses a chair to object boost through it. Up ahead, he'll open and drop down a hatch into some sewers where he'll cook a nade and get out his Gauss while B-hopping into water. In the water, he'll shark and self-Gauss by shooting the Gauss into specific spots to reflect the shot back at him to damage boost him so he gets a little height and can hop over barriers in the water. He nade boosts at the top of this ladder to fly over a tank, then gets out the Hornet gun for the first time since he'll fire Hornets into an elevator door as it opens so they collide with the door and cause it to reverse and shut right away. The next map trigger extends outside the elevator like earlier, so he instantly loads into the next map where he damage boosts off the elevator for speed. Ahead, he'll drop onto a tank and interact with it to blow up some doors, then Gauss boost into boxes that he breaks for ammo. He'll boost past some alien grunts that have Hornet guns for hands and kill them. Kana opens a big door with a panel and squeezes through the opening as soon as it's big enough, then fires Hornets at the door to cause collision jankiness and cause the door to reverse and close quickly, avoiding the enemy Hornets so they don't interfere with this plan. Once the door is closed, the map changes, and if any enemy Hornets make it through the door and hit you after the map change, the game crashes. He lowers his FPS while walking off the top of this elevator slope, and at 20 FPS, there's a super consistent edge bug at the bottom. Kana self-Gausses off and cooks a grenade while he picks up more nades and moves through these doors, and will then skip a whole room where you'd fight assassins by nade boosting to a hole in the wall where he'll ride an elevator down. He'll then do another NPC abuse by killing 4 Hornet hand enemies while also scaring the scientist with a grenade. He lines up his Gauss shot to hit multiple grunts and fires SMG nades for the others. After putting down the nade to scare the scientist, he sticks his hand through the wall to interact with the scientist, understandably scaring them and causing them to run away to open the next door for us. Kana self-Gausses up to a ledge where he 4 FPS's an elevator to hit the trigger early, then will begin cooking a nade for a second water clip. He'll drop down into the water and get up against the pipe he wants to clip into, crouch and hold back, then throw the nade in a specific spot in front of him at 20 FPS to clip into the pipe. He starts cooking the next grenade immediately as he enters the reactor core, where he does nade and SMG boosts off the core to fly to the top and skip starting pumps to fill the core, saving over a minute. After hopping through the hall to a ladder, he charges the Gauss for a boost to start off a B-hop chain past enemies, then 4 FPS is a door, followed by SMG nade boosting up to the top of a room to skip a teleporter puzzle. At the top of this next ladder, he begins the biggest skip of the game, where he first shoots a Barney through a window with the Gauss to anger him and open the door near Kana. He then shoots a nade to scare Barney into Captain Falconing back to open another door and retreat, which Kana heads through after topping off almost all his ammo, as well as picking up the Gluon gun. The Gluon gun is the highest DPS weapon in the game. For the actual big part of this skip, he jumps straight into a teleporter where there's a trigger that deals 5,000 damage to prevent you from jumping in too early. He shoots a Hornet into the trigger right before he goes in so that the Hornet is is dealt all the damage, and he can safely use the teleporter if he enters immediately after. He charges his Gauss before teleporting, and when he teleports to the alien world of Zen, it boosts him and he changes his FPS to 22.22222 and does a jump bug after boosting here, then throws a nade at a specific angle through this small gap to turn it into a nuke and break a cage in the next room and free some butterflies. He then has to move around the room and interact with 3 plant pedestals for them butterflies to interact with, which powers up the teleporter in the middle of the room that he stands and waits on while lining himself up for something he'll show off in a moment. He'll lower his FPS to 6 just before the map changes, which causes the game to slow down massively and the audio to get choppy. He uses the third chop in the audio as a cue for when to save load, which gets the boss monster in the next map, Gonark, to walk a lot earlier and skip an animation, saving 7 seconds. Kana finishes lining himself up when he loads into the arena and throws a couple remote explosives beneath him, then dodges headcrabs that Gonark births at him while waiting for her to make her way up to him. Once she's on top of him, he'll blow up the explosives, launching him up to hit a trigger at the top of the map that teleports him to the previous map. You may be thinking, oh, that's a cool and cute thing to show off, but I know you're going to be commenting, that's actually totally tubular, when he goes back into the butterfly room and shows off that Gonark actually warped to this map with him. After breaking the butterfly cage manually this time and activating all the pedestals again, he tries to keep Gonark near the teleporter while he waits to get warped to the boss arena again. This is because when he gets warped then, Gonark gets warped with him, but Gonark also spawns in the arena, so there's now 2 Gonarks.
Getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
He demonstrates that you can kill Gonark Prime and it doesn't really do anything, before he then loads an old save to do the Gonark fight proper this time. While he shows this off, real quick, thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. Supporting the channel monetarily is entirely unnecessary, yet you all choose to do it anyways, and it just means so much to me, so thank you. Chipping in a few bucks a month helps keep the channel afloat and helps with things like me paying the runners I feature in these videos for their time and effort. By contributing just $3 a month, you get your name in these credits, updates on videos in production and early access, and you can also suggest and vote on runs to be covered in future videos when I run polls every few months. I actually just posted a suggestion thread for the next one of these, so if you're interested, go check it out. But again, thank you to all who support. Back to the run, when he loads the save from before duping Gonark, he's already lined up from when he made the save, so while the screen is black after teleporting, he runs forward with his SMG out and briefly blocks Gonark to aggro her so she runs instead of walks, and he runs back to a specific spot while blowing up some headcrabs. Once Gonark makes it to the spot, he shoots her a bit so she doesn't run too far and launches a nade at her to deal enough damage for her to run to her next spot, which he slides a remote explosive to and blows up. She then begins running to her next mark, and he again slides an explosive to meet her there. Kana grabs some ammo for his Gauss and some satchel charges before then following and eventually overtaking Gonark en route to the next phase of the fight, with him doing a sick 360 along the way. In this next area, he stands in a specific spot to manipulate her movement and starts charging the Gauss rifle. He'll shoot her 3 times with it in her nutsack whenever she stops moving and lowers his FPS to 20 in those moments so she turns and starts running quicker. After the 3rd shot, she'll open up the next pathway that leads to phase 3, which Kana is going to entirely skip. You're supposed to fight her to the death, and at the end of the fight, the floor blows up, but Kana is going to let loose his Machiavellian side by loading up the floor with a bunch of explosives like satchel charges and trip mines, then blow them all up. After then shooting the floor a couple times, enough damage has been dealt to the floor that it breaks, and he falls into the teleporting pool to go to the next map, and he lines himself up in a specific spot in the pool for an SMG boost he'll do when the screen is fading in the next map, which will skip that entire map by bringing him straight to a teleporter. He starts charging the Gauss right away in the next map and uses it to boost a couple times, and he'll then bunny hop through Zen, enjoying the alien world's gravity since he has much longer and higher jumps so he can air strafe much more freely. He's navigating to a teleporter at the end of the map right now, and after going through it, he does a precise SMG boost where he doesn't want to get too much height, otherwise he'd overshoot this entrance up here. He drops down and does another boost to a tunnel where he'll break a barrel in his way, then use the Hornet gun to break a second one since the second barrel is supposed to spawn an alien grunt when you break it, but the Hornet's collision blocks the spawn trigger inside the barrel so he can b-hop around the corner and doesn't get blocked. He turns himself into Stuart Little and fits in this pass where he Gauss boosts, then cooks a nade, drops down and boosts again, and does a big SMG nade boost into hand nade boost to fly up into a teleporter, skipping a ton of fighting and elevators in this room. This brings him to the last map of the chapter, which he skips by nade boost boosting across into the big teleporter, which brings him to the final chapter, Nihilith, where he fights the boss of the same name. While the screen's still black, he uses the gluon gun to destroy half the orbs flying around the boss, then save loads, which glitches the remaining orbs so they don't heal Nihilith. He drops under Nihilith and destroys the 3 crystals on the wall so no more orbs spawn, using the primary fire mode of the Gauss so the shots hit both the crystals and Nihilith, and he moves around to make Nihilith rotate. Each rotation counts as an animation, and its phases are tied to how many animations it does, so he rotates it repeatedly to speed through to the phase where it opens its head and can be killed. After unloading enough ammo into it to get it down to 1 HP while switching between grenade and revolver for increased DPS, he SMG boosts up and shoots its exposed pyramid brain thing, causing lightning to appear, which indicates the boss is defeated and the game and run are over.
So if you made it to the end of the run, thank you so much on behalf of both myself and Kana, and I'd like to give a tremendous thank you as well to Kana for helping make this video. Kana brought a lot of personality to this video and was honestly just a pleasure to work with, so please be sure to check out his stuff. Links are in the description. If you want to learn more about Half-Life speedruns or Source Engine runs in general, then head on over to sourceruns.org. It's a community-ran site dedicated to speedruns of Source games, complete with their own YouTube channel where they show off the incredible stuff that they figure out and come up with, so be sure to check out their stuff as well. Links are in the description. Lastly, check out the Tomato Anus Discord server. It's a super chill, welcoming, and inclusive place where you can talk about whatever, and also get notifications when I go live on Twitch. But that second thing is more ancillary to the amazing community we've built on Discord, so be sure to check it out. Anyway, that's all for this video. This was a scriptless speedrun of Half-Life. I've been Tomato Anus, and I hope you have an above average day.